Hello and welcome back to the Athletes Advocate. I'm your host, Ishal Tack, professional basketball player and author of The Reality Behind the Glamour of College Athletics. Today, I am joined by a very special guest as part of our new segment called The Pivot Portal. We are joined today by Maxwell Zucker. How are you doing today, Maxwell?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So our new segment is a way for us to interview professionals in their careers, share some insights, share their stories, as well as provide and expose our athletes to the various careers out there outside of sports. So Maxwell, I just want to kind of start with where you're from, how you grew up, and what did you want to do when you came out of high school?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Dallas, Texas. Grew up there for up until going to college, and I played tennis from a really young age. My dad played. I just started playing when I was young, and then kind of grew up playing like the local tournaments. And tennis is a little bit different than other traditional team sports, where it's just all on you. So you're traveling to tournaments, you're doing everything on your own, and going through high school. I was good, but I didn't know if I was good enough to play professionally at a super high level. So I wanted to get that college experience and play the collegiate level. And yeah, I was able to do that. And I went to Elon and I had a great experience.
Mm-hmm. So did you choose Elon because of the fact that you were able to play tennis and study, or did you choose it for other reasons?
Yeah, I mean, it was mainly for the tennis and academic stuff, probably the combination of both.
Yeah. And while you were there, as an athlete, how were you able to balance being an athlete and also making sure that you're taking care of your schoolwork and preparing yourself for life after sports, basically?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the adjustment that everyone has to try to figure out, right? Especially, I think, as like an athlete at a high level, your like primary ambitions are the sport, and then you kind of have to balance that with like, okay, I have a test in a couple of days. Do I want to like recover and chill before this game or this big match, or do I need to go to the library and study? And I think that's a balancing act that everyone has to try to figure out. And yeah, I mean, I think at first it was kind of a challenge, but as you get more experience, you get older, and feel like you kind of figure out that schedule, you figure out the timing, and you're able to try to balance it as best you can.
Yeah. Now, you majored in economics while you were at Elon. Did you know ahead of time what you wanted to do, or was it something you discovered after you took your basics?
Yeah, so I think I always had an interest in doing something in like business or finance, and I liked that econ was at a high level similar, but also allowed you to like explore different topics, and I could take a variety of different econ courses and related to different subjects. So I think I kind of went into it knowing that I wanted to do that, but I also those introductory courses really helped solidify that.
Yeah. And I know for athletes, sometimes it's hard to really do internships. It's hard to be involved while going to school. I know there's a ton of internships that you did. How did you balance it all? And do you think those internships prepared you for the career that you're in now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Definitely, I think over the summer, it's like a big prime time to be able to work on, things that you work on individually, and take time for, athletically to try to improve. So I think I tried to do a good job where I was able to do internships that allowed me to have a flexible schedule. I wasn't in the office all day, or I wasn't doing something all day. I had like a balanced time. And so I think I really try to prioritize experiences that allow me to do both, and especially travel for tournaments on the weekends. So I think it was good that I planned ahead and tried to find stuff that worked with both schedules. And luckily Elon, and I think most schools have a pretty good, athletic department team that are able to, they want their students to do well. And so that they'll, I had a couple people at Elon that are really helpful in trying to get me to network with people and just get good experiences. I would say just like really try to leverage those resources that you have at school, because they want to see you succeed as well.
Right. Now, were those opportunities, did you obtain those outside of your coaches or maybe your academic advisors that are offered by the athletic program? Or did you go to the school directly, or did you kind of just reach out, on your own and obtain those?
Yeah, some were through the school. There was one that was an Elon grad, that actually someone within the administration department was like, hey, they're looking for an intern in Dallas. Like, you'd be a great fit. And it worked out perfectly that I was able to practice in the afternoons and went there in the mornings. And it was a great experience. And then there were others that were kind of found on my own, just looking through sites and stuff. Again, I think that came from more of like my initiative to look through that and do that. But again, I leveraged both the school's experiences and the school's resources and my own.
Yeah. Now you're currently in the investment banking space as an analyst at JP Morgan. I kind of want to get an idea of what your transition was like after college, because there's a lot of people, whether they're athletes, ex-athletes, or just regular students that have a tough time after they graduate, transitioning into the real world. We say, how was your transition, and then how did you get into that space?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I've thought a lot about this over the past year and a half. I graduated in May of 2021.
Mhm.
And it's tough. I think, especially as, an athlete for such a long period of time, like your ambition and goal when you wake up every morning is to excel at the sport. And I struggled with it when I stopped playing. One, to just have the structure that I was given every single day. I knew the times I was in practice, the times that I was lifting in the weight rooms, when I had my next tournament. I was always looking forward to something, having that next mind, the goal of what I was trying to accomplish. And all of a sudden, when that's gone, there's this big void, and you really have to try to figure that out. And so it definitely took some time to acclimating. You try to have to piece it all together. I don't think anyone who's retired from athletics is saying, like, I've found something that completely fills that and I'm doing
Yeah.
that. So I think there's little things that you do, whether it's, working out on the side and doing sports on the side, but then also trying to find time for other hobbies and doing other things, family and friends, that all try to kind of piece it all together. But yeah, it was definitely a struggle at
Yeah.
first when I stopped playing.
Yeah. Now, speaking about your career a little bit, kind of explain to us, for those individuals that don't know what investment banking is and what you do as an analyst, explain what it is, explain what your day to day looks like, and some challenges that maybe you faced already that you're currently facing or that just come up, on a daily.
Yeah. So investment banking is a pretty unique role in that at our analyst level and just out overall, we advise companies on what they should do with their business. So they'll come to us and say, hey, we maybe want to sell the business, or we maybe want to buy another business, or we kind of want to grow more, so we need to raise more money. What do you think we should do? So it's really cool because, one, you get to work with a ton of different types of companies and businesses in different industries. So for me, starting out of school, like, I know I want to do something in business, but I don't know where or in one industry. Obviously, like, at our age, it's kind of tough. So it's a great way to, one, get exposed to a lot of different companies and industries. And then two, while, the companies come to us and say, hey, what are all our options? What do we want to do? As an analyst, we have to do the Excel work to run through all their financial statements, and you get a really good skill set of evaluating a business and saying, hey, this looks like a good option or this doesn't.
Hmm.
So at our level as an analyst, you get to build those skills really well, and they translate going forward to whatever you want, whatever type of business that you want to do going forward. So it's the combination of, like, the really high level strategic thinking of, like, I get to be on the phone with the CEO as they're talking through with our team, about different options. And then I also get to do the nitty gritty of the numbers to see, okay, does this make sense? What does this look like?
Right.
So my day-to-day comprises a lot of that Excel work. We're also putting together materials to talk to companies and their management about different options and things that they could do. So there's a wide variety of stuff that we get to do and see. It's been really cool.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think, what type of personality do you think you have to be in this space with the long hours that you may work? And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but with the hours that you put in and the work that you put in, what type of personality do you really have to quote unquote survive, right? And make
Yeah.
sure that you're putting your best foot forward and doing all that you can to be successful.
Yeah. I think as an athlete, there are a lot of skill sets and traits that really translate over really well. And I know that there are multiple people on my team who were college athletes, and in terms of recruiting, they really look for athletes. And I think a lot of that comes with the long hours and having to, work really hard on something and being able to manage, a lot of different, I'm on like 8 or 9 different deals at this time and stuff coming through. So, like, that's the same as it was in college, managing different classes and workouts and matches and all the stuff they were doing. Like, you're building that skill set in college, and then translates really well to our role now. So I always joke, like, there are late nights when we're all working together at the office that feel like a 6 a.m. lift where no one wants to be there,
Yeah.
right? Everyone knows that feeling of being on a 6 a.m. lift and no one wants to be there, but you kind of bond together because
Right.
you're together, and it's kind of that bonding feeling. So
Yeah.
I'm really close with the other analysts and people that I work with that are my age because we all kind of have that bond of working through those tough hours. And it's so similar to my experiences at those 6 a.m. lifts or film sessions that you don't really want to be there, but you know it's important, you know it's the right thing to do, and you kind of all bond together. So it's, in a weird way, there's a lot of similar things from sitting in the office to being on a team in this particular role that I've found.
Yeah. Now we talked about your, education background and how, the amount of internships that you did that prepared you for this role. And you talked about your business background, but for individuals that maybe don't have a business background, what is the route, or what does that path look like for individuals that are looking to pivot into the space, whether they have experience or they don't have experience? I know there's a couple of tests that you had to take. You had to take your SIE, your Series 7, and then 79 or 69.
79. Yeah,
79.
exactly.
Right. So you had to do extra studying on top of that just to make sure you're equipped for this role. So for those individuals that don't have a business background, is it possible, or is it likely, as I know Wall Street, considers your role as a coveted, role, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like how difficult is it to break into this space if you don't have the necessary, I guess, education or experience?
Right. So I'll say first off, like the world of finance in general is so massive. It's so big, right? And I think it's very easy to say, oh, investment banking is like the only route or the best route or something like that. And I would take a step back and say, while it's cool, some of the stuff that I do, like you can get great experience doing a ton of different things. So for specifically for investment banking, I didn't even start investment banking. I started in commercial banking and did a year there and then transitioned over. And it was tough to make that transition. I had to do a lot of networking, and I had to interview, and but I was able to get the opportunity. So I think one, if you can just get your foot in the door in the world of finance and start building some skills, and you start meeting some people and being introduced to different concepts and building that knowledge base, I think it allows you to slowly translate that skill set and those experiences into a better role. And again, my interest in investment banking is individual to me. Some people might not like it and want the long hours, but again, I think one, just getting your foot in the door, getting some experience. There are a lot of classes out there that you can take on Wall Street prep and how to do the modeling on Excel of businesses. And then I think too, I took those exams. We have to take them for our role. We're not allowed to work in the role if we don't take them. So that was after I accepted the job offer, moved over, I started studying for all that. But you want to take the initiative to do that on your own. I mean, that's a great look because, again, it shows to the company or wherever you're looking to apply that this kid really cares and they're really interested and they really want this job. So I think there are a bunch of different routes, but, those are all different options that you can look into.
Yeah. So it's very possible to maybe have a marketing background and then kind of pivot into that space if you do the necessary steps, right, of accessing education and all that stuff to get there.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but I think as an athlete, we understand the uphill battle, and it's putting in the hours and the time that's necessary to do so. So again, I would say it is hard. I had a tough experience, but you really want to make sure that you put your best foot forward. And if you really want it, again, you should definitely go after it.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people don't understand the differences between private equity and investment banking. Is it something that you can talk on and kind of explain the differences there and what they do versus what you do?
Yeah, sure. So typically in finance, there's this idea of buy side and sell side. So in private equity, right, they're actually buying companies and selling companies. They buy a company, they think, oh, it's not really run very well. We can do some things and, hire some people, change the direction, and then we can sell it and make money. Whereas on the sell side, so that's the buy side, and venture capital firms do that. There's a bunch of different, finance hold groups that do that. And then on the other side is this term called sell side. And we, as an investment banking, we're on the sell side in that a company will come to us and say, hey, we want to sell it. We want to get sold. We want to, leave this business. And they hire us to help them manage that process. And then we reach out to all the private equity firms to say, hey, this is a good company. You should look into buying this. And so a lot of people will start out on the sell side and get good experience and go to the buy side. They'll start investment banking and go into private equity. So it just depends. But again, when you're on the buy side, right, you're literally buying and selling companies. You're a private equity firm. It's really important work. You're spending millions and millions of dollars. Whereas on the investment banking side, we make our money from the company just paying us to help them. So we don't really have a say in the battle of like who gets bought or whether or not it's a good company. We just want to make our money by helping them with that process.
Yeah.
Start to finish.
Yeah. And, apart from, the benefits you get just from your career and what you're doing and where you're going in life, what are some other perks and benefits that you get personally just from working in this space, like that is making your life better individually?
Yeah. I mean, I think one, you're surrounded by a ton of really smart people. And I think, especially at our age, you're starting out in our career, you just want to be exposed to really smart people and just try to learn as much as you can. So I think definitely being around and being in this group of people is really cool. And then also seeing how ambitious people are and all the different things that they're doing was really, eye-opening to different stuff. I think it's kind of easy to get in like a tunnel vision of certain things, but when you're exposed to people, a lot of people doing different things, it is really cool. And then I think too, as I said, like, I'm not sure what I want to do long term, but I think it's something in business, managing something on my own side. So the idea that I get to be on the phone and listen to these CEOs talk about the different options of their business or why they're doing X, Y, and Z is like the most amazing learning tool, because you get to hear firsthand why they're making this decision or what are the costs and benefits of that. And as a 24-year-old out of college, like there's no other role that you get to do that. So it's kind of crazy that I'm sitting on the phone sometimes and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like there's a public company that, with a CEO that's well known and I'm on the phone with them. So I think both of like getting exposed to like the really smart people around me and then also learning from our clients has probably been like the best part outside of just like the day-to-day work.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I saw an article out there or something that you put out that you met Warren Buffett. Is that correct?
Oh, that wasn't me. I actually haven't met him, but maybe there's someone else. Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was you. I thought it was an article.
I wish. He's amazing. And there's a ton of people that are, kind of obsessed with his like philosophy of buying and buying stocks and doing all the stuff he does. He's a really cool guy. Yeah.
Now, you've spoken about like, the CEOs that you get to talk to of these amazing companies and all that. What types of rooms are you in? Like, apart from just talking to the CEOs, what types of room are you in now? What types of connections have you made just being in this space?
I mean, yeah, again, like I haven't been in this role too long. And I definitely think if you stay in it long term, you're obviously on the phone with, these people all the time. You start building those relationships and, at the highest level in investment banking, right? The idea is that the CEO of the company calls you up and says, hey, we need to do this. Can you help us? And so that the highest people in our job field know every CEO and they're involved. And especially if you kind of key in on a specific industry, all the tech CEOs, you do everything in technology and you have that expertise. But for me personally, I think one of the coolest parts about being at JP Morgan is it's a huge bank and there's a ton of different stuff going on. So, just in general, I was walking the office a couple months ago and the whole block was blocked off in New York City where I work because there are all these SUVs and there was all these like Secret Service type people outside. And as I was walking in, I know one of the security guards because I walk in every day and I was just like, hey, what's going on? And he was saying, oh, it's the wife of the Ukrainian president was there to thank our CEO for helping them finance their war on Russia. And so she was,
that's cool. That's huge.
And oh my gosh, we're literally like, helping this country like defend off Russia. And it's, all this crazy stuff that it's like, this happens in my job in day to day. So I think, just being in the room and seeing all this stuff happening at such a young early age is kind of crazy. And I'm just trying to take it all in and enjoy it as much as I can.
Yeah. And I know you're kind of new in this role and you're trying to figure out where you're going from here, what the path looks like for you. But in the investment banking world, what is the actual path of the career path of where you are now into maybe the highest role that you can
Yeah.
have in that
Yeah.
space?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, as I mentioned, like so many people stay in investment banking and then they're able to go off and do a bunch of different stuff. And I think that's what's really cool is it just opens a ton of doors because you're expected to do a really high quality of work. And it's a good, it's like going to a super good college. People just say, oh, you did that, that's really good. We just expect more of you. So, people can go into private equity, which we talked a lot about, which is a really high paying role. You can go into venture capital. You can go work at a specific company and do stuff there. So if you want to stay in investment banking, like the path is you just kind of rise up the ranks and you get more and more responsibility. And after a couple of years, at the beginning, like you're just putting together all the PowerPoints and doing all the nitty gritty work. And then after a couple of years, maybe you start managing the analysts that do that. And then as you get higher and higher up, as I mentioned, you're the one that the CEO calls and says, hey, we're interested in this. Can we meet next week? And you're basically, you're just on the phone with CEOs all day, like having discussions about stuff to do. And it's at that level, it's kind of crazy that that's just basically your job. And it's crazy, nonstop, fast paced, and you're closing deals and stuff's happening. But it's really cool at that high level.
Yeah. And just kind of getting into your mental health a little bit with how stressful your role can be. Are those phone calls always pleasant? Do they get chaotic a little bit? How do you decompress after work, after, working long hours? Like, what do you do for fun? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we kind of talked about, I mentioned earlier, like the structure of athletics, that was such a big part of my life. And so I've really tried to, like, regardless of how long a day or night of work I've had, like I try to work out every morning. That's my go-to. And we had practices in college in the mornings and I really like that, kind of just set up the day well. So I think structuring for me is really important. And I just really benefit from that. And I think it's a balancing act too, again, of like the working out for me and then also just doing stuff outside of work on the weekends with friends. And obviously being in New York City is great. There's so much to do and restaurants and bars and museums and stuff going on. So it's a great place to be. And, I'm just exploring that and seeing different stuff, which has been great.
Yeah. With what you've learned so far, just in life or your role, if you could go back in time and maybe correct some things or, make some changes, what will you do now? I know you're still young. You just got to this space. There's room to grow, and move up. But what would you, with where you are now, what you've learned so far, is there something that you could have changed maybe back when you're in college or maybe getting to this role?
Yeah. I mean, I think like looking back, I think I would have tried to been more proactive in just trying to reach out to people and networking. I think it's really not that hard to just like send a message on LinkedIn or just send an email to someone. And obviously people are busy and you're not going to hear back from everyone or maybe half that. But if you can just start building relationships with people that are doing some stuff that you find is interesting. And I think everyone that's in a position of power and that have rose up the ranks, they know that it was hard for them and they want to help out too. So if someone reaches out and says, hey, I really like what you're doing, no matter what industry it is, and I think this is applicable to anything. And if you just say like, hey, I really like what you're doing. Do you have 15 minutes to talk? And you can get on the phone with them and just start hearing about what they're doing. And I wish I had done more of that and started to build those relationships because I'm doing that now and I can see how helpful that is for me as like mentors and people that I'm getting advice from as I start my career. So wish I would have started that earlier.
Yeah. As an athlete yourself, we hear about being more than an athlete. We hear that over and over and over again. But what does that really mean and what does that look like? How can athletes like go above and beyond their identity as an athlete? And you touched on this a little bit earlier, but how can they start exploring the world outside of athletics without, being handheld by their coaches, by the athletic department or programs, by their, parents or whatever the case may be, or whoever's around them? How can they start doing that themselves? Because you don't know what you don't know, right? And you need to, once you explore and you go out of your comfort zone, that's when you start to learn. So how can they do that? Or what is some advice you can offer in this space?
Yeah. I mean, I'll say first off, like, I think every athlete deals with that identity issue because I think it's very easy to get caught up in the sport as your identity and you're not viewed as you're only viewed as that sport, as that athlete, and not anything else. And so I think for me personally, like I was surrounded by coaches and administration and a team that was encouraging and definitely very supportive of my interests. And so I think one, if you're honest and upfront with your coaches and the people around you about, hey, I'm kind of interested in this thing, then hopefully they're gonna want to help you and support you. But I mean, just going back in general, I think as long as you're maintaining like a good attitude and practice and doing things that you need to do for the sport, I don't think there should be any question as to whether or not you can explore different things and try out different stuff. So I think first off, like obviously don't miss your practices, like make sure you're taking care of the stuff that you need to do. But as long as you do that, there shouldn't be any issue of you trying to learn about other things and try different stuff. So I honestly, I think that's important. Like you need to be more multifaceted than just, I'm just a tennis player, I'm just a basketball player, I'm just a football player, because it's very easy from the external world to be viewed as that, for people to come up to you and say things to you, oh, you're that person, you only do this. And so I think it's almost like a good thing that's important that you stretch yourself and try different things.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And thank you for coming on the show today and sharing your insights and your expertise and what you do, and encouraging athletes to be more than what they are, right? And to kind of explore early on to put themselves in the best position, after college, after their sport, whatever the case may be. But before you go, we do want to ask, what would you leave with our listeners today?
Well, first, thanks for having me. This has been great. And it's kind of nice to, think back and process my transition and experience. And I definitely struggled with a lot when I was first coming out of school and stopping playing. So it's great to now be not necessarily on the other side, but kind of figuring things out and feeling like in a much better place.
Yeah.
But I just would say like the biggest thing is for me is I think there are so many cool things to do outside of sports in this world. As much as we all love sports and sports are so great, that I just would encourage everyone to just try to reach out to people and just hear about what they're doing if something interests you, and do research online. And I know that sports will always be part of our identity and it's always going to be a part of who we are, but just being a multifaceted person, I think, is so important. So just encourage everyone to just reach out and try to learn and try to grow as a person, I think, is the biggest thing.
Yeah. Now, if there are people that are interested in maybe learning more about your journey, your story, or just want to reach out and pick your brain about certain things, or just to connect, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn as my name, Maxwell Zucker, too. My Instagram's the same, Maxwell Zucker, and my Twitter as well. So, anyone's feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to discuss my journey and offer any advice, and would love to connect with anyone as well.
All right. Well, thank you again for coming on. It was a pleasure having you. We wish you the best, and just let us know how we can support you going forward. Okay.
Thank you. It was great to be on, and appreciate the time.